Welcome to Donna's World.
Hello everyone, welcome to Donna's World. Thank God it's Friday. Well, I've been away for a while, I'm back. And this week I want to concentrate on what's been happening outside Nigeria, in the United Kingdom and the United States, where two strong black women ran for different types of elections. Kemi Badenoch, a lady of Nigerian extraction, competed to become leader of the British Conservative Party and won. Much to my amazement, it's just quite amazing really that a Conservative Party would choose a black woman in any country in the world, even in Nigeria, even in an African country. So Kemi Badenoch won. Meanwhile, around the same time, in the same week, Kamala Harris, whom I love, strong black woman, another one, was beaten conclusively in the American election, presidential election, by Donald Trump. And by the way, I have to quickly say that people who complain about my fondness for Kamala, I don't understand it. I mean, she's an attractive, intelligent black woman. I identify with her and I wish her well. So, I don't get why some people hold it against me that I like Kamala better than Trump. But hey, that's perhaps this whole issue of who we identify with and whom we root for politically is another topic maybe for another day. Whether we should root for people because they look like us or we feel that they're from the same race or from the same tribe or the same profession, I guess that's another topic. It's a whole separate topic. But today anyway, I'm going to ask my sister, Lela. She's my kid sister, and she belongs to the British American Project. And she happens to be in America when Kamala lost. And she happens to be in the UK when Kemi won. So I talk about my family a lot and my personal life. And so I think it's about time you met my sister Lela. And I'm going to ask her to do most of the talking around, analyzing how people felt when one black woman was defeated and the other one emerged victorious. So, Lela's in London, I'm in Nigeria, so we're doing this interview by Zoom, and here we are. I thought the reason why I'm roping you into this video is because you are uniquely well placed to offer opinions about how people felt about the completely contrasting fortunes of Kamala Harris, who lost the American election, and Kemi Badenoch, who became leader of the Conservative Party, all within a very short time span, within the same week. And so, the parallels are obvious. These are two strong black women who've gone into politics in white-dominated societies and had differing results. So let's start with Kamala, who, of course, being a vice president of the United States, is the most senior of the two women, and ran against Donald Trump, and much to my distress and the distress of many people, but also, the joy of others, lost. And you happened to be in America at the time. So tell us what your observations were regarding the general atmosphere when she lost.
Yeah, well, actually, I arrived in the States on the 6th of November, which was the day after the actual election final poll. And I thought that it would go on for a few days. So I was in America for about a week, just over a week, and I thought, this is going to go on for a while because it's going to be close, it's going to be tight. But by the time I had landed, it was already clear that Kamala had lost and Donald Trump had won. And I was going for a British American Project conference, which is a bringing together of leaders from different sectors across the UK and the US. And I would say that there was a kind of shock. So people didn't really discuss it much, interestingly, even though a lot of them were, you've got a lot of people who are journalists, politicians, and so on. And I think that it was a kind of, I would put it down to a little bit of trauma and shock. There were Republicans in the group, for sure. Many of them were not a lot of them were not necessarily Trump voting Republicans and didn't necessarily or didn't admit to it. I did come across people who were pro-Trump, and their explanation for why he was the right person was that they thought that a lot of what had been said against him were lies, and that in fact, it was all trumped up by the establishment and that they were lies and that he was the best person. But I think the majority view was that there are a couple of different types of views. So one view was actually the Democrats had simply got the whole campaign wrong, i.e. they had not focused on the things that ordinary people care about, whatever background they are from, whether they're black or white or Hispanic, that they hadn't focused on what they care about. The prices in America over the last 4 years have gone up by almost 25%. And people are struggling. And when I went to, we went on as part of the visit, went on a civil rights tour to Selma and Alabama. And honestly, the deprivation in some of those places is palpable. You can feel that people are in despair, that they are struggling, and so on. So I think that there's probably some truth in the fact that the people feel not that they haven't been listened to, that their struggles are not recognized and taken account of, and somehow I think they believe that Trump was the answer to that question. I don't personally.
Let me interrupt you briefly. Let me interrupt you briefly and say, these are people of all colors who were poor and worried about the cost of living and other social pressures, socioeconomic pressures. Okay, so did they feel that Trump was the answer, or that anything has to be better than what we have now?
I think that they felt that anything has to be better. So Kamala Harris, if they thought, okay, well, Kamala has been in a vice president in this same administration. Yes. So they wanted something different, I think.
Right.
So no matter, it's almost not what she said, but I also think that some of the issues that seemed to be significant, like abortion rights or trans rights and so on, in the end, I'm not sure, but who knows? The polls tell us that it was a mixture of things. I'm not sure that was the issue. So I think that there was a definite not feeling heard by the people, by a lot of people. Although I would say that it's worth pointing out that the majority of black people, 85% of black people in the States did vote for Kamala, although it tended to be fewer black men, but a lot of people stayed at home as well.
I heard that 92% of black women. I heard that 92% of black women voted for Kamala, and a large chunk of black men as well. So there was an ethnic aspect.
There was definitely an ethnic aspect. So in total, it was something like 57% of white people voted for Trump. And then on the Latino side, it was almost 50-50. I think it was slightly ahead for Kamala on the Latino side, but the majority of Latino men voted for Trump, for example. Right. So I think there was definitely some racial thing going on. What shocked me was the number of young people that voted for Trump. So 43% of young people voted for Trump, for people under the age of 30. And that was a real shock. And for 30 to 45-year-olds, it was split about even. So that was surprising to me. So that was one thing, people feeling that they hadn't been heard, hadn't been listened to. The other theory that some people put forward while I was in the US was that Americans really are not keen on the idea of a woman president at all. And I think you saw that probably with Hillary Clinton, although Hillary Clinton did get the popular vote, that somehow, they just don't like the idea of a woman leader, which is really odd, given how many countries in the world have actually, including developing countries, who've actually had a female head of state. So, so that was another theory, that actually it was the fact that she was a woman. So I think there are all kinds of different reasons, but my personal take is that it was this issue of people having a hard life, and they want something different. So educated people tended to vote for Kamala, and uneducated people tended to vote for Trump.
So it's interesting that despite the fact that America has a reputation of, sidelining black people and black people being poorer than white people in America, it's interesting that people identified Trump as the person who would protect the rights of poor people, or at least take them to a better place, while the black woman was seen as an elitist, by an elitist who wasn't going to, or wasn't focusing on the needs of poor people. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, essentially, I think that is I think probably is about right, and I think what people perceive and what is true are not the same.
That's a real contradiction, given what we have been told about the respective roles of black and white people in America. It's just the black woman who was seen as the sort of upper echelon elite person, and the white man who was seen as the champion of the downtrodden, and yet he's a multimillionaire. And
exactly.
She's just an average professional with regular income.
So that is the other thing that's interesting. So you've got a rich, very, very rich white guy who is seen as standing up for the poor, when that is not. If you look at his behavior over time, you wouldn't say that was the case. But I think that he actually has been able to communicate certain things to people. He's been able to communicate, I care about your issues, things like immigration. I'm going to stop people taking your jobs. I'm going to stop the imports from foreigners, so that we can make our own things, and you'll be better off. I care about you. There was one interesting quote that I heard when I was there on the trans rights issues, where there was a poster that said, from Trump's campaign, that said, Kamala cares about they, them, I care about you. So simple little phrases like that, I think, were effectively communicated. Make America great again, whatever. So I think people just bought the fact that they felt he stood up for them. And I think in theory, I guess a rich person can, of course, stand up for poor people, and a poor person might not stand up for poor people. So I guess it's not totally illogical. But I think, people wanted something different. I think there's a bit of a crisis in the world, actually, on that front, whereby people, they want something else. And I think a lot of politicians on the left don't fully understand the nature of the communication that is needed to get the message across. And not just communication, but the actual reality of what is done.
Well, a lot of people on the left are intellectuals. Not all of them are sort of like grassroots trade unionists and so on. Well, it's complicated. Yeah. Human beings are complicated. The human condition is complicated. Something you've said to me off camera in the past, which I'll raise now, is that you don't share the anger that some of us feel towards black people who did not vote for Kamala, and Latinos, because the reason some of us are angry with them is, well, apart from the fact that we think, well, she's your sister. This was your one chance to put a sister on the map. There's also the belief that Donald Trump doesn't like black people and has said very negative things against Latinos. So we're angry with Latinos and blacks. J-Lo, the famous actress, and some other big Hollywood names raised these issues. But you say you don't agree with the anger that people feel towards, you don't see them as traitors, black people and Latinos who voted for Trump.
No, not at all. I think my general view is that you can't blame. I don't blame the electorate. I think you have to look at the reasons why they feel what they feel, rather than it's their fault. So I think that that certainly on the Latino side, I was shocked to see that almost half of Latino people in America thought that Trump was a better option. And particularly given some of the hostile comments, including referring to their countries as swamps, closing the border against more Latinos coming in and so on.
And
I'm like,
calling Mexicans
are you
rapists.
sure your own? Yeah, are you sure that your own people are not going to get deported? Are you yourself going to be safe? And but I think that in a way people see. I don't blame them, because I think that it's easy for those of us who have enough food to eat to make a judgment about people who are struggling. So they wanted they know that their life is very, very bad, not good. They're in despair and they're looking for something different. And they don't necessarily understand all of the nuances of different political parties and their positions. So it's like an instinctive perception about who they will be better off with. And I think the other thing that seems to be going on is that some immigrants believe that they don't want more immigrants coming in, that it will put sand in their gari, to put it in Nigerian terms, that it will worsen their own chances. And you see that happen, whereby you think, well, I don't understand. You yourself are an immigrant. Why would you vote for somebody who's saying they don't want immigrants? But there you have it. So I don't blame them. No, I don't blame them. I think the Democrats in the states need to do better at communicating and at having policies that actually work. I don't think it's just a race thing. After all, Obama did win. Obama was elected president, and maybe some of this is a backlash against that, But yeah, so I don't think it's a static thing. I think that people are emotionally responding, probably.
So what I would ask you then is, people think that the Democrats on this occasion were not answering their concerns, were not facing their concerns. Did black people and Latinos have a better time when Trump was president before? I mean, we don't have to speculate about whether Trump is better for black people and Latinos, because he's been president before. We have empirical evidence.
So even if the Democrats are saying, oh no, we've really done well with the economy, well, what is it that people understand about the economy? They don't understand gross domestic product. What they say is, since the Democrats have been in power, since Biden, Harris have been in power, our food prices have become higher. So they perceive themselves certainly as having done better, and maybe they have. I mean, I don't know for sure what in terms of how it feels. If you go to the supermarket and you can't afford to buy enough food for your family, then you're going to perceive that the previous situation was better.
I think you are also better qualified than I am to comment on the opposite thing that happened in the United Kingdom in the same week that Kamala lost, being that a black woman was elected to head the British Conservative Party. Basically, the British Conservatives are probably the British equivalent of the Republicans. So,
yeah,
what do you think was happening there?
Well, I think I don't know how much people know, but the people who were in the running, she had the last three. James Cleverly seemed to be the most. He's also a black man. Seemed to be quite likely, and then there was some tactical voting, and he was the last person left. So if you're going to choose between the last two candidates, Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick, then I would say Kemi Badenoch is a better option. But she's a problematic option from my perspective. I would love it for it to be that a black woman of Nigerian descent was in a powerful position in the UK. But I think that she has said so many nasty things about Nigeria, so many things that are problematic for black people and race equality in the UK, that it becomes worse with her there, because it's almost like every racist can hide behind somebody who's black. To be fair to the Conservative Party, I would say that they have demonstrated that they are more diverse than the Labour Party. So I think that in the end, the Conservatives voted for Kemi Badenoch because she seemed to represent their views,
about
and they were happy with it.
And various other
about immigration
issues,
and so on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And some of the things that she said that I have problems with. So, for example, she said that the African and Caribbean countries that are seeking reparations for slavery and colonialism are just trying to scam the British. It is those little kind of phrases that are like, if she were, I can. Reparations is not a straightforward concept, but at least acknowledge that there's a discussion, a debate to be had, or discussion to be had on the topic. Whereas to say that they're scamming the British, it's like that is just simply false. And to say good things have come out of colonialism, what does she mean exactly? So she phrases things sometimes in a way that, in my view, demeans black people and the struggle for equality. On the other hand, I think that some of the things she says in the past are valid, but she's become worse and almost like there's a lot of dog whistling. So she's kind of trying to stir emotions. She talked about a war against woke. For example, it's like, yeah, we kind of prefer war against poverty, if you don't mind, really. So I think that she's saying things which create an emotional response, a bit like in the same way that Donald Trump does. And people kind of go for that. And she's not, I would say that I don't know whether she genuinely believes those things, to be honest, because some of the things she said that I've listened to early in her career kind of make sense. She talks about the fact that black Africans need to be in the room and in the conversation when discussions are being held in Britain about Africa, for example, which I would agree with. She's not wrong that some of the people on the left are as racist as anybody else. And she's not wrong that ultimately for black people, she wasn't wrong at the time, that ultimately for black people, a genuine meritocracy should serve us well. Do you see what I mean? So I think that she's, so in some ways, I think that she has done a disservice already, because I think there is something with both Kemi and people like Trump that they stir up ill feeling, which for their own political ends. And it's like, if you create a society that is fractured, where people are not cohesive and so on, the long-term damage is unforgivable, I think.
Okay, well, thanks for that. I mean, we'll have to watch and see what happens. My feeling is that Kamala's political career, well, I wouldn't say it was over, but it's probably not, she's probably not going to have another shot at the presidency, leadership of the Democratic Party, whereas there is a possibility that Kemi will go from strength to strength and eventually become Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Though a lot of people think that when it comes to the actual voting of the general population, because remember, she was selected by Conservative Party members. Yeah. Yes. People think she cannot win the bigger vote of the general population, but it remains to be seen. Anything is possible. I never thought a black man could be president of America in my lifetime. And hey, what do you know? Obama made it. You know?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we're glad that we had Obama, even if things are rocky looking forward.
Yes, things are not looking good for going forward. I wonder what the future holds for Kamala. I wish her well, very much.
Yes,
so.
I like her. I think. Yeah, I think she did it. I think at the time, I thought she did a great campaign. And then with hindsight, you think, okay, maybe she could have run a slightly different.
Could have done better. And in the case of Kemi, she says a lot of things that annoy me, but not everything she says is nonsense. And I also wish her well. I am a bit of a racist in the sense that any black person who's got potential, I tend to want to support that person, even if I don't agree with everything they say or think. And I say, people tell me that that's a very racist attitude. I supported Rishi Sunak, the previous British Prime Minister, because he was a brown man of Indian extraction. So, I guess you can understand when white people want to vote for one of their own, because I usually want to vote for one of my own.
I want to vote for whoever is going to make the position of black people better and of Africa better, regardless of their color.
Yes, and a lot of white people are good peeps, and maybe a white president of America, or white, but not Trump, or white prime minister of Britain will do great things for black communities on
Yeah.
either side of the Atlantic.
And similarly, I want to vote for somebody who would do well for poor white people.
Yes.
And not just elite people. So if you want to, and I would say put Kemi in that category, if you support a group of people who are the elite, regardless of their color, I would always go for somebody who's supporting the wretched of the earth rather than the elite and the rich.
Okay.
So that's it. Okay.
All right, babes. Thanks, sis.
All right. Take care. Yeah.
Bye.
Let me know.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks to my sister for telling us about the views and the general atmosphere in the UK and US when Kemi won and Kamala lost. And also just want to include a little clip that involves two of my sister's friends talking about how they saw Kamala's defeat. They were all in Atlanta at the time, so I found what they had to say very interesting. And after that, I will move on to viewers' voices. Thank you.
I'm Michael Lomax, living here in Atlanta, Georgia, have been an elected official in this community, have been a president of a black college, and today I run a large charity which gives more scholarship support to black college students than any in the country, and which supports historically black colleges. We've just come through a big election cycle. The outcome has had a lot of emotional impact. The question is, will it have global impact? Will it have huge domestic impact? Americans obviously chose the strong man over the strong black woman. And it's traumatic for all of the black voters who had been hoping to knock down a big barrier. The reality is, though, that there has been so much change in this country that there's also a wave that says we want to go back to some old values and some more conservative approaches. Over the long term, I don't think that is going to be the direction of the country. And I think that we still see the opportunity to elect another person of color president of the United States in the next decade. The bigger issue is what's going to happen to Africa, what's going to happen to other parts of the world where black people have been outside of the special focus of the United States. And I think this is an opportunity for black people in those communities and black people in this country to build stronger diasporic ties so that we're not relying upon what happens in Britain or in the United States to direct the future of our continent, our people, wherever they reside on the globe, and where we, as private citizens, leading businesses and social impact enterprises and charities, are creating a strategy for our own strength and our own future prosperity. And so, rather than look to someone else who does not look like us, we're going to look within and find that leadership on our own.
I'm Lurisiru. I'm the CEO of a consultancy that advises companies and charities on strategy around social impact and how to communicate that strategy. And we've worked also with the Labour Party in the UK. I agree with much of that take. I think in particular, I think in this election, we saw it a bit in the UK, communicating on social issues which are complex and divisive has been a challenge, and we saw that with the debate around trans inclusion and immigration as well, and DEI more broadly. I also think incumbents are struggling in general to win elections when people expect delivery, and governing has just become much more difficult. It's why the incumbents in the UK were kicked out, and we saw the Democrats having the result they got as well.
We're back to Viewers' Voices. It's a section of my video that has been neglected for the past 3 or 4 weeks because I was away in Europe, and so we've sort of compiled some of the responses that came in. The videos were still going out, but we weren't commenting on viewers' comments. And but we've compiled a few, and I'll run through them now. Okay, so this one is from, thank God it's Friday on the 15th of November, which was where I interviewed Obi Asika, a Nigerian guy who went to Eton, the same school as Prince William and Prince Harry, probably the most exclusive boys' school in the world. It's a boarding school in the UK. And he's now Director General of the National Council for Arts and Culture in Nigeria. So I interviewed him about a wide range of topics. And if you look back, if you haven't seen that video, please feel free to go and look at my back catalogue on YouTube. And let me just run through some of the comments that I've received. Somebody said they were very glad they stumbled on it. Mr. Obi Asika was quite the guest. And he felt I should have spoken more, but he enjoyed the interview. And that's from Moving Ear 23. Then there was someone called Philomena Source 6114, and she said very much enjoyed part 2 because Obi's interview was long, so we divided it into 2 parts in 2 consecutive weeks. And she said she very much enjoyed part 2, very educational. Thank you, Donald, and your lovely guest. Your USA fan. Well, thank you, Philomena. I am grateful for anybody who can find the time to tune in to this channel. And Philomena again, said I looked nice. So I'm also very grateful to anybody who thinks I look nice, because I could look a lot better. You know, I'm always going on about my weight issues and blah blah blah. So you know, I could look better. So, but thanks for appreciating how I actually look. And she loved my guest. Hope to have him on again. I think we'll have to drag him on again in a few months' time when he's got new things to tell us about. Because, you know, because he's in charge of arts and culture in Nigeria generally, you know, there'll always be really interesting things he can say about this country and the creative people and spaces within it. And Philomena sends loads of love and happiness to me and my guest. Could listen to both of us all day. A fan from the USA, thank you so much. You know, most people tune in for like 5-10 minutes and then they drift off. Very few people actually watch any YouTube video for more than 5 or 10 minutes. So I'm grateful for anybody who watches for even 1 minute. But of course, my special affection and gratitude are reserved for those who stick it out and listen to the whole thing. And Obi's videos were long. They're at least 30 minutes each or something. Okay? So now, this is the comments. These are comments from thank God it's Friday on the 21st of November. I was still abroad when these were sent in. That's why I'm only mentioning them now. And this is all about Kamala. I interviewed a young lady who had worked in the White House while Kamala was there and who has met Ms. Harris on more than one occasion. And she's a great fan, like me. And some of these are reactions to that interview, which again, if you missed it, if you go back to my YouTube catalog, you will find it. I think it was in October sometime. And this is from Denise Whitsall. Donnie, to me, it's not the color of the skin that matters, but the ideology. Because one of the things I always say is, oh, this is a strong black woman, I really identify with her on a personal level. Denise says, it's not the color of the skin, the ideology, which is true. I do not want America to become socialist, much less communist. I already experienced communism in Cuba, and you can have Kamala Harris to destroy your country, not mine, America. Well, what I would say, Denise, is if you are from Cuba I can understand your sensitivity to left-wing ideology. I've been to Cuba actually. When I was young, I went to the Cuban Jazz Festival, had a ball in Havana, but I remember being really, it was nice as a young person to be in this exotic, interesting place. And I met Fidel Castro, who, of course, is a legend, whether you approve of him or like his politics or not. I mean, Fidel Castro, that's an iconic name. So I did meet Fidel Castro and had a really fascinating time. But, I do think that, I actually agree with you that socialism and communism are not always the best options for a society. There were shortages of everything. There weren't enough consumer products. It was all a bit grim. There were certain privileges reserved for tourists who came in with dollars. But for the actual people themselves, I remember some of the Cuban women telling me that they only allowed X number of underwear every year. And there are a lot of things that made me think, this is great for holiday, but I wouldn't want to live here full time. So Denise, if you're coming from Cuba, I understand, but you've also got to give socialists some credit. I'm not a socialist or a communist for that matter. You've got to give them some credit. In Cuba, at least, I remember that they had a really good medical system that covered everybody, including poor people. And so, it's not always about whether you can buy the nicest dresses or whether there's enough glamour and choice. Sometimes it's about fundamentals like, do you take care of ordinary people? Okay, so, and you're right about the ideology thing. People shouldn't vote for someone just because they're black or just because they're female. Identity politics have their limitations. I agree with you. But, I can't help myself. I just love Kamala. Anyway, then there's Jude Webb. Says she's sorry that the US election wasn't what I wanted, and she doesn't think it has to do with Trump being white, but more about what people see or believe that he can bring to the table. And she believes in some things, but obviously not everything, and she says, let's just wait and see what happens. And thanks me, thinks my videos have great content and aren't too long, like some channels. This was great. Thank you. Because I'm always worried that I talk too much or my guests talk too much and that people will lose interest before we've been going on for more than a few minutes. So it's good to know that some people like the videos, despite the fact that some of them are a bit lengthy. Then there's, so that was Jude Webb. And then there's MCF5226. I'm an American and this has nothing to do with color. This is Kamala again. I appreciate the fact that you think she's a black woman and that's supposed to mean something in history. It doesn't, because she doesn't know policy, and policy is key to running this country. The only reason she's sitting in the White House is because some idiot by the name of Joe Biden went on race. I want somebody that's going to protect the US, not turn us into a communist country. Okay, well, you think Biden's an idiot? Well, I suppose as he gets older, he does come across as a bit fragile and maybe not as vibrant and smart as he used to be. But you're entitled to your opinion. Then there's rumor has it 9506. I'm a white American, and when Trump won the election, I felt like 9/11 happened again. He is dangerous and unhinged. As far as I'm concerned, people who support him are either racists or completely ignorant about history and what it means to be an informed citizen. This is a terrifying time in this country. Too many Americans only think about themselves and not the welfare of their fellow countrymen. I must say that I tend to think that Trump is quite dangerous, but in fact, very dangerous. I'm very unhappy about his attitude towards women, about that comment he made about grabbing women by the pussy, about the fact that he's been married 3 times and has cheated on all his wives, about the fact that he calls Mexicans rapists. There's a lot of things about Trump that really upset me. But, so I am actually with you. Rumor has it 9506, but let's be civilized and accept that those who see something good in Trump are not completely evil or stupid. They just have to explain themselves better, because so far, very few have actually given me good reasons for supporting Trump. Okay? Then there's Fiber Goddess 1, and it says, have you ever listened to Donald Trump? He is the word salad maker of all time. He can never finish a thought. He never talks about what he can do to help people. It's all about how badly he's been treated by his opponents and the justice system. He was found guilty by a jury that was randomly called to report for jury duty. Some of them were Trump supporters. If you don't do the crime, you don't have to do the time. Well, Fiber Goddess, I agree with you. 34 felonies, but hey, it doesn't bother everybody. And then there's GLC Tony. The US will have a president of color. I just don't know if it will be black or orange. That's a bit rude, because Trump is known to be a sort of like shade of orange, probably caused by real tanning or tan lotion out of a bottle, whatever the case may be. I'll say one thing for Trump. He was a very handsome man when he was younger, you know? So, and he's aging quite well. He's aging better than Biden has. So that's nice for him and his wife, who's a lot younger than he is, but hey. And then there's Bettina Hosler, who says, great interview. That was with Yasmin, the young lady from the White House. So thank you for that. I'm sure Yasmin will be very, very thrilled to know that somebody enjoyed that interview, or people enjoyed that interview. I've had nice comments from lots of other nice comments, but not everybody conveys their approval through YouTube. So thank you to those who do, because it's good if the comments appear under the video they refer to. And then last Friday, I talked about godparents and grandparents, and Philomena got in touch again and said she was very close to her grandparents or godparents growing up. They have since passed, as my parents have also since passed. We were all very close due to my parents being loving and caring, miss them dearly, very close to my children and grandchildren. I believe in close relationships with family. It makes for a happy life. Must have God in our life always to be happy. And that is a really lovely, lovely, positive thought. And I'm happy. It's so good to come across people who have had happy childhoods and are having happy family lives right through to their old age and middle age, you know? So that puts a smile on my face, Philomena. You know, that's wonderful. And thank you for getting in touch. And Patricia Russell sends greetings from South Carolina, USA. Happy Friday, she says, and I say happy Friday back. So next, the viewers' voices will now continue, and I'll be really grateful if you could also tune into my channel next Wednesday. It's called Kick-Ass and Wellness Wednesdays, and that's about self-improvement, about how I'm trying to improve my body and my mind and my life, as opposed to Fridays, which is about general stuff like politics and other things. So that's all for today. Thank you very much. See you on Wednesday, or at least next Friday. Bye.